Les informamos que el día de hoy tenemos servicio de interpretación inglés y español. Para activarlo, pueden seleccionar el canal de español en la parte inferior de la barra del Zoom, dirigiéndose al globo de interpretación. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to QICA webinar on gender equality infrastructure. We would like to inform you that we
Ana
are
María está
providing English and
compartiendo las
Spanish
instrucciones para
service,
conectarse al canal
English and
inglés
Spanish
para los
interpretation today. To
angloparlantes.
activate and select the Spanish channel or English channel as you prefer, please go to the bottom of the Zoom toolbar and select the icon of interpretation. And you can select English, and then you can follow us in English. Welcome.
Gracias, Ana María. Y pues bueno, solo confirmar con ustedes que hoy tenemos una agenda bastante nutrida. Tenemos avances en temas de género a nivel regional.
Differences
Y
in
pues vamos
gender,
a hablar también, vamos a tener
and
un
then we will
diálogo
also
con Mónica
discuss
Muñoz
with
en
Mónica
torno al
Muñoz
panel que está liderando y
in the
con
panel
UNESE
she's
también
leading
y la
and
despedida pues de Javier.
UNESI,
Y ahora con esto les
then
doy a
the
ustedes la
closure
bienvenida y
by
bienvenida.
Xavier,
Muy
and
buenos
let me
días o
welcome you all.
tardes, depende de donde
Good
se
morning, good
encuentren.
afternoon,
En nombre
depending on
de la
where you are.
Secretaría
On
Ejecutiva de
behalf
QICA,
of
les
the
damos la
QICA
bienvenida a
Executive
este webinar de
Secretariat,
género
we
en
would like to
infraestructura de la
welcome you
calidad,
to the gender
organizado con el
in the
apoyo del
quality
proyecto QICA
infrastructure
CE2,
uh,
la integración de la
webinar
perspectiva
in
de
the
género en la infraestructura de la calidad,
integration of
cada vez
gender
más
perspective in
conocida como
quality
un elemento
infrastructure
clave
is
para
more
mejorar la
encompassing
pertinencia,
as a
la
key
inclusión
item
y
to
la
improve
efectividad de los
relevance,
servicios que
inclusion,
prestan
and
las instituciones
effectiveness
del
of the
sistema.
services
Mejorar
provided
esta
by the
perspectiva permite
institutions in the
asegurar que las
system.
normas
And
de
in
los
this
servicios de evaluación de
perspective,
conformidad,
helps
las
check that
actividades de metrología
conformity assessment,
respondan mejor a
standardization,
las
and
necesidades
metrology
de todas las
better
personas.
respond to the
Al
needs
mismo
of all
tiempo, la perspectiva de
peoples.
género es
And
fundamental
in
para
turn,
promover
it is
entornos
critical to promote
organizacionales más equitativos
organizational
en las
environments that are more
instituciones,
equitable
fortaleciendo la
at our
participación,
institutions,
liderazgo y el
strengthening
desarrollo profesional
participation,
de las
leadership, and
mujeres en
professional
ámbitos
leadership and
tradicionalmente técnicos.
development of
En el marco
women
del
in
proyecto
traditionally technical
QICA-CE2,
arenas.
las tres
In
organizaciones
within
regionales
the
que conforman
framework
QICA,
of
que son
this
el Sistema
project,
Interamericano
the
de
three QICA
Metrología y
organizations, the
Metrología, obviamente,
Inter-American
la
Metrology
Comisión Panamericana
System,
de Normas
the Pan
Técnicas en
American
los temas
Technical
asociados a
Standards
normalización y la
Commission
Confederación
and
Interamericana de
Standardization,
Acreditación,
and
han
Inter-American
comenzado a implementar
Accreditation Committee,
acciones
which have
concretas para
started
avanzar en la incorporación del
implementing
enfoque de
concrete
género
actions
en
to
nuestros
add the
respectivos
gender
ámbitos y ustedes
approach
en un
in our
momento lo van a
relevant
conocer
environments,
de
and you
primera mano
will
pues
see
porque
this
el objetivo
firsthand
de hoy es
very quickly.
presentar y
Today,
reflexionar
we
sobre
would
estos
like to
avances,
reflect on
compartir
these
experiencias y
advances,
motivar a
share
otros
experiences,
actores
and
de la
motivate
infraestructura de la calidad en
other
la región a
actors
iniciar o fortalecer
in
sus
the
propios procesos.
QI in the
Quiero
region
agradecer
to strengthen
especialmente al
their
proyecto Great
processes.
for C
I would like
y
the Great for
obviamente
Sea
liderado y
project
apoyado por el PTB por su
is with the
constante
support of
apoyo en esta agenda.
PTV, with their
Cedo
constant
en este
support
momento
for
entonces
this
la palabra
agenda.
a mi
And I
próximo
will give
intervenidor para unas palabras de
the
bienvenida.
floor to
Gracias.
PTV for their welcome.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Feney, y también de mi parte, desde
Thank you,
Alemania, buenos
Ferney.
días, desde
Good
Alemania,
morning,
y
everyone from
nada, es
Germany.
un gran gusto
It's a
darles la
great
bienvenida en nombre
pleasure
de
to
PTV
welcome
a
all
este
of
webinar de
you
Kika.
on behalf of PTV
Muchas
to
gracias a
this
Kika,
QICA event. I
sus
would like
miembros
to
SIM,
thank
COPAN
QICA
y
and
AC, como
its
bien ha
members,
comentado Javier, Feney,
COPAN
por la organización de este
and
importante
SAME
espacio de intercambio.
and AAC for the
Bueno, la pregunta es, ¿por qué
this
hablamos de
important
género en
exchange.
la
Why do we
infraestructura de
speak
la calidad?
about
¿Cuál es la
gender
relación?
inequality
Y
infrastructure?
bueno, es
What
bastante obvio que
is
una
the
infraestructura de la calidad
relationship there?
eficaz
A
debe
quality
responder a las
infrastructure that is
necesidades de toda
effective
la
needs
sociedad.
to respond
Incorporar
to
la
the needs
perspectiva
of
de
all
género nos
society.
ayuda a ofrecer
The
servicios más
gender
inclusivos,
perspective helps us
pertinentes y de mayor calidad.
give relevant
Y
and
por eso la igualdad
quality
de
and
género no es
inclusive
solo una cuestión de
services.
equidad,
Gender
sino
equality is
también
not
de
just
calidad
equity,
institucional.
but it is also
¿Cuál es
institutional
el
quality.
compromiso de PTV?
The commitment of
En el PTV
PTV
promovemos la igualdad de
is to
oportunidades, la
promote
diversidad
opportunity,
y un entorno de
equality,
trabajo inclusivo.
diversity, and
Fomentamos la
inclusive work
participación de mujeres en la
environment,
ciencia,
promote
la
the
tecnología y
participation
los
of women in
puestos de
science,
liderazgo.
technology,
Nosotros
and
tenemos
leadership.
un proyecto que se llama, por
We
ejemplo,
have a
QIC, donde
project called
fortalecemos la
Clustered,
participación de
where we promote the
jóvenes, de mujeres
participation of
jóvenes,
young
para
people, young
aprovechar y
women,
saber cómo funcionan las
to
ciencias y
see
cualquier
how
experiencia que
science
deja en
work
ese ámbito
and
también.
why it is okay to
Creemos así que
work in
la
this
diversidad en el
arena. We
colegio
believe
nota
that
y la
diversity
excelencia científica.
strengthens innovation and
Otra iniciativa
scientific
que me gustaría
excellence.
destacar
Another
es
initiative I would
el
like to
Open NMI
highlight
Gender Community,
is
una
Open
comunidad que
NMI
acabamos de
Gender
lanzar.
Community, which is a
Es una
community
comunidad
just launched.
internacional de
It is an
aprendizaje entre los
international learning
institutos nacionales de metrología,
community
así que
among
sobre todo para los
metrology
INMs de todo el
institutes,
mundo.
especially for
Este espacio permite
INNs all
intercambiar
over the world,
experiencias,
with the
aprender
idea of
unas de
exchanging
otras y desarrollar
experiences, learning from
conjuntamente
one
enfoques
another,
prácticos
and
para
jointly
promover la
promoting
igualdad de
practical
género
focuses
y
to
el
promote gender
empoderamiento de las
equality
mujeres en la
and women
metrología y la
empowerment
cooperación
in
científica.
metrology and technical
Y como bien ha mencionado
cooperation.
Fene también,
As
nuestros
Pranay has
proyectos,
already
por
said,
ejemplo, en este
our
caso, en el
projects, for
proyecto
instance, in this
QIFOS
case,
Circular Economy
the
2, integramos la
Circular Economy
perspectiva de
2,
género
QFOs,
desde la
will integrate
planificación
the
hasta
gender
la evaluación
perspective
y
from
cooperamos con
planning
QICA
from
para
to as
avanzar
all the
hacia
way
una
to
C,
assessment. And
infraestructura de la calidad más
we
inclusiva.
want
Y
to
este
work
mismo
with
evento
quality
solo es una
infrastructure
pequeña
plus
parte de lo
technology.
que
And this is
realmente
just
estamos
one small
haciendo en
event
este
of what
contexto.
we're doing within
Así que
this
nos alegra mucho
context.
ver que
So
SIM
we are
y
very
IAC ya
happy
están
to have
utilizando tanto
SIM Copant
estas
and
iniciativas
ISC
concretas y
being
comparten
so
hoy en día
involved in
sus
these concrete
experiencias concretas.
initiatives and sharing their
Estas acciones que
experiences.
estamos
These
haciendo
actions
están
that we are
alineadas con
taking
las
are
prioridades
aligned
de nuestro
with
Ministerio Federal de
our
Cooperación Económica
Federal
y Desarrollo,
Ministry of
que
Cooperation
considera la
and
igualdad de género un
Development
objetivo
in
transversal de la
approach
cooperación
with gender
alemana para el
equality, a
desarrollo. Así que
critical
este
objective in
enfoque se
German
encuentra
cooperation
en
for
todos
development.
los
This
proyectos que
focus
tenemos
is
ahora
found
desde la
in all
parte de
the
la
aspects
cooperación
we
alemana.
have from
La
German
política de desarrollo del
cooperation.
Ministro promueve los derechos, el
So
acceso
this is the
equitativo a
promotion
recursos
of
y una mayor
rights, equitable
participación de las
access to
mujeres en la toma de
resources,
decisiones.
and bigger involvement of
Em,
women in decision
Otro
making.
ejemplo recién que
Another
quisiera
recent
compartir
example I would
de
like to
nuestra institución
share
PTV
of
es que
our
este sábado
institution,
en
PTV,
Braunschweig, donde
is
está la sede
this
de PTV,
Saturday in
tiene
Braunschweig
lugar
at
el
the
Christopher Street Day,
seat
que
of
internacionalmente se conoce más como el
PTV.
Pride o el Orgullo, y nos
There will
hace
be
bastante
the
orgulloso como
Pride
institución
Parade,
que nuestra
and we are
presidenta, la
proud
profesora
that our
Cornelia Dens,
president,
haya
Professor
asumido
Cornelia
el
Dens,
patrocinio
has
oficial de este evento,
taken the
así que
sponsorship of
fortaleciendo
this
los
event,
derechos de la
also
comunidad LGBT
strengthening
y
the
Q+.
rights of the
Así que
LGBTIQ and plus
a nuestro ámbito de
community.
diversidad
So in our
muestra que la diversidad y
diversity
la inclusión son
environment,
valores
we
que
are showing
promovemos
that
tanto dentro del
diversity
PTB
and inclusion
y
are
como también
values
en nuestra
included in
cooperación
PTB
internacional.
and the
Así que
international
nada, espero que este
cooperation
de
we
verdad
participate
sea
in.
una
So I
oportunidad para
hope this
aprender
is an
unas de
opportunity
otras
to
y
learn
seguir
from one
transformando la
another and to keep on
sensibilización en acciones
transforming
concretas.
awareness and
Así que muchísimas
sensitization
gracias
into concrete
y
actions.
este ha sido el nombre
Thank you
del
very
comité de
much.
nuestro proyecto.
And
Una
on behalf of
excelente actividad que
PTV,
corresponde a
we
aprendizaje.
wish you an excellent activity with a lot of learning.
Gracias, Tim, por sus palabras y por estos ejemplos de trabajo
Thank you,
conjunto
T, for
coordinado
your
desde
words
Alemania
and for
y
this
aquí en
coordinated work
América
from
con la
Germany
infraestructura de la
and here
calidad.
in
Solo para
America with
recordarles que
the
pueden
Latin
dejar sus
America with
preguntas en
quality
el chat
infrastructure.
y
You can leave
nosotros,
your questions in
como se
the
están
chat,
desarrollando
and
las charlas o los paneles, vamos dando
since
respuestas y
well,
si no tenemos
will
respuesta en este
give
momento,
some
se las
answers as
enviaremos
we
a
go
su correos
along, and if
electrónicos.
we can't, we will
También
send the answers
informarles
to your
que estamos
emails. I would
grabando
also
esta
like to tell
sesión
you that we
para
are
que más
recording this
adelante en nuestras
session
redes
so that
sociales, en nuestros canales de YouTube,
in
tanto
the
de Steam
next
Copant,
days, in
como de
different
IAC, puedan ustedes
social
reproducir esta información tanto
media,
como lo
Copant,
consideren
and
pertinente.
well, you
Ahora
can
llegamos a un
answer.
momento muy
Now
importante
we
y es
are coming
conocer
to a very
los
important moment, that
avances que en
is to
este
know
tema
about the
tenemos a nivel
progress in this
regional.
field at
A
regional
continuación
level we have.
escucharemos
Now we will listen
al Sistema Interamericano
to
de
the
Metrología,
Inter-American System of
responsable de
Metrology,
este pilar tan
responsible for this
importante, a
very
la Comisión
important pillar,
Panamericana de
the
Normas
Pan-American
Técnicas,
Commission of
encargada de
Technical
todos los temas
Standards,
de
responsible for
normalización
all
en
the
entorno regional y a
standardization
nivel
issues in the
mundial, y
regional
la
and
Cooperación
global levels,
Interamericana de
and the
Acreditación.
Inter-American
Solo
Cooperation
para
of Accreditation.
recordarles un
Just to
poco que
remind you,
las siglas de QICA
the
son el Consejo de la
ICA
Infraestructura de la
signature
Calidad
is
de
the
las
Council
Américas,
of
que integran
Quality of
a estas tres
Americas that are
organizaciones
part
pilares
of
de la
these three
infraestructura de la calidad.
organizations. They
Y en
integrate the
este momento
organizations of
dejo a
quality
Sonia Shang,
infrastructure.
secretaria
So now
ejecutiva del QICA,
Sonia
para
Shang,
que
she
nos
is the
cuente
executive
mucho más de lo que está
secretary, so
sucediendo
that
en
she
STEM.
tells us about what is happening
Bueno, muchas
in
gracias,
STEM.
Ferney, por la
Thank you
presentación.
very much, Ferney, for
Cámara,
your
un segundito que compartí
introduction.
mi pantalla.
I will try to share my screen.
Si me confirman si pueden ver la pantalla.
Can you confirm if
Perfecto,
you
Fanny.
can see the screen?
Muchas
Perfect.
gracias. Bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Así como
Good
lo
morning,
dijo
everyone. As
Ferney,
Ferney
una
just said,
presentación por parte
I
de SIM.
will make a presentation on behalf of SIM, SIM. And regarding the Inter-American System of Metrology, we will talk about measurements.
También para agradecer
I
a
would
este
also
pequeño
like
grupo
to thank
QICA,
PTB and
por
QICA
brindar estos
for
espacios donde podemos
providing
compartir las
this
experiencias y, bueno, aprender un
space where we
poquito
can share
de
experiences
cada uno
and
de nosotros y de
learn
lo que
about
otras
the
instituciones y
different
organizaciones
things
están
that
realizando
different
en materia de
organizations
género.
and institutions are
Quiero
performing
comenzar
at
diciendo que para
gender
pasar
level.
de la
I would like to start by
sensibilización a
saying
la
that
acción
from
necesitamos de evidencias,
sensitization to
¿cierto? En 10 minutos les voy a presentar los resultados parciales
sensitization, I will show you
realizado en
partial
el SIM
results
este año.
of what we
Estas
have
buscan
had in SIM
identificar
this year.
dónde existen
This
avances,
allows us to
dónde
see
deben
where
concentrarse
there's
entonces los
progress,
esfuerzos
where the
en
next steps
términos de
should be
igualdad de género. Vale
concentrated
decir que
as
los
to
resultados que
gender
voy a
is concerned.
presentar
So
son
the results I
resultados
will introduce
parciales,
are
un poco
partial
resumidos
results,
en honor
maybe a
al
bit
tiempo,
summarized
pero que ya nos
due to
permiten
lack of
tener
time,
una
but
idea
this will
de lo que
allow us
estamos
to have an
haciendo en
idea
regional.
on how we are doing at regional level.
En primer lugar, quiero comentarles,
First, I would like to tell you,
como para enmarcar un poco la
just
presentación,
to give you a
que en
framework
el
of my
SIM buscamos una
presentation,
planificación
in SIM we
estratégica,
have a
misión, una
strategic
visión y
planning,
unos valores.
mission,
Quiero
vision, and
enfatizar que
values.
nuestra
I would
visión
like to
es la de una
emphasize that
organización
our
regional de
mission is
tecnología con
the
liderazgo internacional,
the
inclusiva e
development with
innovadora.
international
Y es por
and
esto que los
innovating
valores de nuestra
inclusion. That's
organización,
why
a los
the
que llamamos
values
en conjunto
that
Team
we, as
SIM,
a call, we
por sus
call
siglas
them
en
Team
inglés,
SIM
tienen
because of
agregados
its
uno de los valores
acronym in
centrales de
English.
la
It's one of the
organización.
central values of the organization.
Para generar más contexto, les
To
comento
generate
cómo
more
estamos
context, I will
estructurados.
tell you
Tenemos
how we are
54
structured. We have
miembros,
54 members.
33 de ellos son
33 of them
internacionales,
are
así que son
from
ciudadanos
national
interamericanos.
institutes, from
Solo
NSBs,
dos
from
países del
the
continente no son
metrology.
miembros a la
In the
fecha, que son
metrology,
Cuba y Surinam. De esos
17 and
17 institutos
Suriname are
designados,
non-members,
4 miembros
17
asociados
assignated
y 13
institutes,
organizaciones enlace
4
o socios, ¿verdad? Para que
member
les haga una
affiliates, and
idea
13
de cuál es el universo
organizations. This gives you an
de la
idea of what is the
muestra,
universe
cuál es el universo de la
of
encuesta.
our
Acá
survey.
tenemos una línea muy
Here
resumida
we
de lo
have
que
a
les podemos
summary of
entregar, que
the
la igualdad de género
line
existe
of
organizado
the
desde el
timeline
principio, desde
about
sus manos,
gender
hacia el
equality
compromiso de
and the
gestión
principle of
institucional.
management to the principle of
Hoy día, ¿cuál es
institutional
el reto?
development.
El
What
reto
is
hoy
the
día es
challenge
convertir ese
today to
compromiso en
turn
procesos,
this
recursos,
commitment into
responsabilidades,
processes,
indicadores
resources,
que nos permitan
responsibilities
poder
that will
evaluar
allow us
si
to
realmente estamos
assess
cumpliendo
if
con los
we
objetivos
are
que nos trazamos?
really complying with our goals.
¿Y cómo logramos eso?
How do we
Como
achieve
dije, nosotros
this?
somos el
As
primer
I
sistema
said,
interamericano de
we are the
referencia.
Inter-American
En
System of
primer lugar, les
Metrology.
comento que
So
medir
first, I
no es
would
un fin
like
en
to
sí
say that
mismo, sin embargo es necesario
measuring is
porque nos
not an end in
permite
itself, but it's very
observar,
useful because it
comprender,
would allow us
priorizar,
to
actuar,
observe,
volver a medir para
understand,
evaluar.
prioritize,
Con esta
perform,
medición
or act
logramos
and monitor.
tener una
With
línea de
this, we
base
can get
y
a
ese índice de
baseline,
base
and
convierte
this
una aspiración
baseline will
general en
turn
una
into a
línea
general
coherente de
aspiration,
resultados.
into
Entonces,
a
sin esa línea de base no podemos
line.
saber qué
Without this
funciona, dónde
line,
persisten las
we
brechas y
cannot
cómo
know
debemos afinar
exactly
recursos
where
para
the
lograr
gaps
nuestros
are, if it
objetivos.
really works, and where we need some improvement.
Aquí podemos ver el
Here,
alcance
we
del
can
reto.
see the scope of the
También definimos un
survey, and
poquito lo que
also
va a
we
ser el
define what will
denominador
be
que vamos a
the
utilizar en todas las
denominator that
métricas
we will use
posteriores que
in
vamos a estar
all
viendo durante la
later
presentación.
metrics that we will
Los
see this
resultados de la encuesta que
presentation.
les estoy
The results
mostrando
of
son
the
resultados parciales,
surveys
como
that
les
we are showing,
comenté
these
de
are
nuevo.
partial
La
results, as
encuesta
I
se
just
encuentra
told you.
operativa,
I asked members
todavía no han completado la
if you
encuesta,
have
por favor,
not filled the
ingresen a la
survey,
misma y
please
respondan
get
porque es muy
into it
importante
and
para
answer,
poder
because this
avanzar.
is very important for us to go forward.
Obtuvimos a la fecha
We
19
got
respuestas. Estas
19
19
answers.
respuestas
Those
corresponden a
19
19
answers
países.
correspond to
18 de ellos son
19
organizaciones que
countries.
se identificaron como
Some of them, 18 of them,
o
are
IBM,
active
y
members,
uno como miembro
and
afiliado
one
o
as an
desarrollador.
affiliate member
Los
or other
porcentajes son
organizations.
justamente,
All the
digamos,
percentage,
ustedes
as I said, that
utilizan
we
esas
will
19
see,
organizaciones
use
como
those
denominador.
19 organizations as common
Lo que
denominators.
examinamos en líneas
What are we
generales
checking in
a través de
general
la encuesta
lines
es el
through the
compromiso
survey
institucional,
is the
las prácticas
institutional
implementadas,
commitment, the
los
practices
mecanismos
that are
metodológicos y
implemented,
las
follow-up
perspectivas para
mechanisms,
avanzar en
and the
igualdad de género.
perspectives to go forward as to gender equality is concerned.
Aquí entonces comenzamos
Here
a evaluar
we
un poco los
start
resultados
to
parciales de
assess
esta
the
encuesta.
partial
Podemos observar
results.
el grado
We
de
can see the
institucionalización
level of
y la igualdad de género
institutionalization,
está
if
respaldada por
gender
reglas,
equality is supported by
responsabilidades,
rules,
recursos y datos, y no
responsibilities,
solamente por
resources, and
iniciativas
data,
puntuales.
and not only by
Una
specific
política o
initiatives.
estrategia vigente
Policy or current
proporciona
strategy
orientación y
provides
continuidad. Una
orientation and
persona o un
continuity.
equipo
A
responsable nos
person or a
permite asignar
team
funciones y poder de
will allow us
procedimiento.
to
Sin embargo,
allocate
tener una responsable
resources, or however, having
no
somebody
implica
responsible
necesariamente que dispongamos
for
de
it will
presupuesto,
not
tiempo
imply
o
that we
recursos
have
específicos.
budget
Entonces
time or
podemos
specific
relatar que el
resources. So here we can see
53% de
that
los institutos
53%
respondieron que
of the
cuentan con una
institutes have
política o
answered that
estrategia
they
vigente.
do have a
Sin
current
embargo,
strategy or
cuando
policy.
profundizamos un
However,
poquito
when we
más,
get
vemos que en la
deeper into
categoría
it,
de
we see that
responsables
in the
por recursos asignados,
category of those who are
que es
responsible with
la
allocated
naranjita que ven
resources,
allí,
that is the little red
96% de los
orange
respondientes
line,
respondieron
only
que los
16% of
responsables
the
cuentan con
institutes
recursos
said that
asignados.
those who are
Cuando en líneas
responsible
generales
have the allocated resources. When
explicaron que
in
los
general lines, they said
responsables
that they
funcionales
have
también informó que
58% for those who are the
los indicadores
responsible for it.
de
The
implementación
indicators
nos
that you
permiten
can see
medir la
here will allow
progresión
us
de
to
avance.
measure the
Entonces, ser
gaps and
implementados estos
progress.
indicadores significa
We
que
see this,
están siendo
and this
utilizados por la
means that
organización.
they are being
Y el
used by the
desarrollo significa que la
organization, and
institución
development
todavía
means that
está trabajando en su
institution is
definición o
still
puesta
working on
en
the
práctica.
definition.
Entonces, ¿qué es lo que observamos
So
acá?
what do we see
Lo que
in our
podemos
map?
observar en
We
líneas
can
generales es que
see
la
in general
responsabilidad
lines is that the
institucional está más
institutional
extendida que la
responsibility is
asignación de
broader
recursos
than
y la
allocation of
medición sistemática.
resources and systematic measurement.
En esta diapositiva podemos
In
comparar la
this
existencia de
slide, we can
prácticas con
compare
su nivel de
the
formalización.
practices with the level of
Liderazgo
formalization.
femenino se
Feminine
refiere a que la organización
leadership
fomenta la
refers to the
participación de mujeres en
organization,
puestos
promotes the
directivos o de
participation of
liderazgo.
women
Medir
in
cuántas mujeres ocupan actualmente este
steering
espacio.
positions, in leading
La respuesta
positions.
entonces es
And the
posible
answer
cuando
is
existen
more
metas
sound when there
estipuladas y
are
reglamentos en la
measures of
promoción de género.
goals set and not only general
Conciliación
promotion.
laboral y familiar
Labor
se refiere a las
conciliation,
medidas que ayudan a
reconcilement refers to the
compatibilizar
measures that we
responsabilidades profesionales y
will
personales. ¿Cuál es lo que sucede
compatibilize
ahí? Puede
personal,
ser
professional measures. Those measures
teletrabajo,
could be
horarios flexibles,
teleworking,
licencias
flexi time,
parentales equitativas. Y
equitable,
las medidas
equitable
formalizadas están
parental
incorporadas en reglas,
um,
políticas o
leaves. This
procedimientos.
is
Las
based on
informales pueden
policies,
depender
procedures.
de
The
acuerdos
informal ones
particulares o de las
may
prácticas
depend
de
on
dicho.
specific agreements or
La
daily
formación
practice.
técnica
As to
se
technical
refiere al
training,
acceso
refers to
equitativo, tanto de mujeres
equitable
como hombres, a
access,
cursos,
both
becas,
men and
congresos y
women,
otras oportunidades
to
científicas o
training
profesionales.
courses and
Pero tener
different professional
registros o
opportunities.
indicadores
But
nos
having
permite verificar quién
records
participa
will
o
allow us
evaluar
to
sus
know
desempeños.
exactly
Entonces, en estos
who is
resultados, pues
participating and
podemos ver
identify some challenges. So
que cuando
here
hablamos
you
de
can
liderazgo
see then
femenino,
when we
tenemos un
talk
89%
about
de
this, we had
institutos que
89%
reportaron
of
que se
institutes that
fomenta. Sin embargo,
reported
cuando les
that
preguntamos
it is promoted.
si
However, when we ask
ese
them
fomento
if
tiene
that
metas
promotion has
establecidas para el
goals
cumplimiento,
set
solo el
up for the compliance,
37%
only
informó
37%
que cuentan con metas.
said that they do
En
have
cuanto a la
these
formación
goals.
técnica,
As
también
to technical
es importante
training,
resaltar el
I
100%
would
dijo que
like
la
to highlight
oportunidad
that it's
para acceder
100%
a los
equitable
cursos,
opportunities
capacitaciones
to
y
have
desarrollo
access to
profesional en sus
training,
institutos
professional
es
development in the different
equitativo tanto
institutes.
para hombres como
It's
mujeres.
equitable.
Pero
It's
solo el
the same for
26%
men and
de los
women. But
institutos
however, only
tienen registros
26% of
o
these
indicadores que
institutes
permiten
have records
evaluar
or
sus tareas de
indicators that will allow
diversidad
to
equitativa.
assess that this registry is
Aquí podemos observar
at the
si las
same level for
acciones
men and
pueden
women.
mantenerse,
We can see
evaluarse
here if actions can be
y
kept
mejorarse en el tiempo.
or if they can be improved
Entonces,
throughout the
evaluación de
time. So
avances se
progress
refiere a la
assessment will
frecuencia con la que
refer
la
to the
institución
frequency with
revisa
which
y
the
reporta su
institution
progreso
will
en igualdad de
check
género.
and report
La evaluación
progress as
anual
to
se
gender
refiere a una
equality.
práctica
Annual
periódica
evaluation
y previsible.
refers to periodic
La
and
evaluación irregular
foreseeable progress. Regular progress refers to some check without any formality or frequency setup. Future plans refers to specific goals for the coming years. And when we see that the definition refers to intention and preparation work. As to already defined plans will indicate that the institution already has some real orientation, some guidelines on where they are going to. When we talk about prevention and reporting, we are talking about mechanisms to prevent gender violence and to respond to specific cases. So a mechanism may be limited to sensitization or prevention. But in a formal process, we should incorporate research and some kind of penalty and offer an institutional answer or response to it that is a more structural, a structured one. Some of them have started with some actions, but the challenge is to turn it into periodic cycles of implementation, assessment, and report. This is how we can see the results as to progress assessment, future planned, prevention, and reporting, as you can see the metrics. If you have any doubt, let me know in the chat.
Entonces,
So, what will allow us to collect this information at regional level and as a regional institution or a regional body? This, for the SIM, will allow us to translate the findings from the answer into real actions that will allow us to understand the starting point of the different institutes. 53% of the institutions said they had a strategy or policy as to gender equality this in oriented, but only part of it is implemented really. An action could be to develop and share models, tools, and practices to promote policies, select indicators, and organize the follow-up. As to training, number two, the training we're talking about as the roadmap refers to strengthening skills as to gender equality, incorporation of gender perspective, design of policies, generating of data, differentiated or broken down by gender, monitoring, etc. The idea is to check if technical training is available for both men and women on equal terms. When we talk about connecting, the idea is essential when we consider the existence of regional bodies. Experiences and practices that already exist among the members can turn into regional knowledge, can facilitate some exchange as to practice communities, mentoring among peers, and adapting tools to different institutional contexts. And we talk about monitoring. We can say that only 32% reported that they do have annual assessment as part of the strategic policies as regional body, so we can keep a baseline at regional level, repeat, for example, periodically some situations, and support our members as to their progress and measurement and results. So our message with this roadmap is that the value added as SIM we can provide is to offer a general framework with shared skills and support. Of course, this has to be adapted to its regional situation, and we can go from regional diagnosis of the different skills to shared results. And with this, I will finish my presentation. Thank you very much for listening and for paying attention.
Muchas gracias, Sonia. Muy interesante los avances que
Thank you,
ha
Sonia.
trabajado el SIM.
Your
Y como ustedes se
progress is
pueden dar
very
cuenta
interesting.
en estos
As you
esfuerzos,
can
en estas
tell, in
iniciativas,
these efforts and
las
initiatives,
organizaciones que desarrollamos actividades
the
técnicas
organizations engaged in technical
los
activities are
concentramos
pretty
específicamente en lo que
stringent
corresponde la
and
trazabilidad
focus
metrológica,
on what
la
we do,
CSC, y otros elementos que son
metrology
realmente muy
and
importantes para el desarrollo del país,
other
no
elements which are
olvidan
critical
esta
for country
principal y,
development.
como lo ha explicado
And this does not forget the human component. And Sonia has said that SIM is working a lot, working on such important matters for society. Now we will standardization. COPAND has also signed this declaration, but we wanted to go deeper because we have already published an ISO-IC guide on the use of gender perspective in technical standardization bodies inside the standardization bodies for international committees, mirror committees, both international and national, and also national committees. And we wanted to share this guide with our members and have their input on how it's or who is already using this guide. We had a webinar at the beginning of the year with the involvement of 27 countries, 122 participants, and we invited speakers such as UNSC, ISO, the Spanish UNE with another guide on gender perspective for any kind of organization, not necessarily standardization body. And we took a number of data and even the names of bodies that wanted to move on to a second phase. It implied creating 2 sessions of focal groups with the involvement of 8 regional NSPs of the region. We held brainstorming sessions and whiteboards to have more evidence from them. Even when many of them say they are acquainted with the guide to apply it in their national committees, many of them are not actually using it. They have developed their own tools and they are finding it hard to start implementing this guideline in national committees. As findings, we have seen that there is awareness of gender perspective, but tools are missing, practices, repositories and kits, and of course the authorities support. We are now launching a mentoring program. We want to have in the rest of the year 6 mentoring sessions. It will not be training itself because training sessions are training programs are in our web pages, ISO-IC, UNC, as to how to implement the gender perspective in standardization. And we have the great experience of Música, the Mexican Quality Infrastructure Women's Association, which has written a decalogue as to how to use the guideline and other guides. They also have a national diploma in Mexico on gender perspective subjects. And within that, we want to see the possibility of working together with Música so that we can eventually have this diploma open to QICA's members virtually. And that is something we need to talk about this with Música as to how we can do it. What we have learned in these 2 focal groups we have had is that NSPs are in very different implementation stages, talking about the implementation of gender perspectives. Awareness is not enough, practical tools are necessary. The leaders' support is very important. We need to start with a pilot committee to find a realistic path ahead, and peer learning is very valued in the region. Something that we can highlight of our lessons learned from our members is perhaps in Trinidad and Tobago, in the TTBS standardization body, they have a mandatory module for committee members, which is e-learning for an internal gender plan training program. in Peru, in ACAL, the Peruvian standardization body has an internal training for national adoption. They have not adopted the ISO IEC standard, but they have adapted this to their realities and their technical committees. This mentoring program we want to implement will go from August to December this year. And of course, we will have a launch session, what we mean by these mentorships, and we expect to have 8 NSPs, and the more the better in this mentoring effort, and each body will, working with 1 or 2 pilot technical committees, will guide us as to where they need training, advisory efforts, or experience mentoring, so that we can think of the next sessions, which type of mentors we need to invite, so that there can be this exchange for the mentors and the trainees as to how they have sorted out some aspects in their ethics committees. Many technical standardization committees think that standards are neutral, and they don't think that questions need to be asked to see whether standards actually need to include some gender perspective. Many a time, even in cybersecurity, where most committee members are men, gender does not filter in there. And we know that people that have more attacks on cybersecurity are women. So the subject has already been discussed. What we want is for countries to have tools and kits, repositories that can help them ask these questions at their technical committees at the time to start working on a standard. We need to look at the gender issue. As I'm telling you, the idea will be to train somehow, to equip people to have onboarding kits, practical hands-on modules, Q&A sessions, focal points for each organization, piloting, working together with the technical committees to invite Musica for workshops, mentoring clinics, of course, the piloting efforts at the NSPs, give them support and follow-up, and have expert mentors in each session. We want to work with UNICE here. Michelle Pacuda is here with us, but she's also from the SCC, which is an organization which has made such a huge progress in gender, and they can be a mentor. And we're looking for organizations that have made relevant progress, working in hand with ISO and IC with their gender programs. We're working with the support of PDB with the gender cross department or organizational effort, and together with Musica, and seeing which support we can get. The key messages that we have are that regional cooperation will accelerate the implementation of awareness, this initiative at the time to write standards. Metrics are important to see how many women are part of a technical committee. That is important, because if there are no women there, hardly will the gender perspective be advocated. But we are interested that in the standardization document, the gender perspective has been included, and they are not considered neutral, but that they consider all the diversities needed to be taken into account. Of course, capacity development or building needs to be hands-on. That's why we need a pilot project and have mentoring, and as progress is made, to have it continue in time. Create this repository, kits and tools, so that they don't only help this group of bodies, but having a co-pant repository for all its members. And obviously, the institutional leaders' commitment is very important. This is what we have to share with you as co-pant. The launching of our mentoring plan is scheduled for September. As I'm telling you, we will get to December with the 6 mentoring sessions, and then we want to have a presentation made to the leaders of NSBs in the co-pant Week next year in San Jose of Costa Rica in April, where we will have a specific session for gender perspective. I would like to thank Ferney and all our colleagues.
Thank you very much, Corey, for this interesting progress. And I would like you to also see in this joint work of these 3 organizations, seeing that is organizing and understanding how the community is developing all the concepts of gender perspective. All this at the end has to become a standard, and co-pant is giving us the consensus, the way which how we will our organizations will be working in will be able to work in a coordinated way as to gender perspective. Corey has explained very well how they are working in combined with all NSBs, not only at regional level but also at global level, to give us these consensus elements. And in this area, the idea is to start applying these guidelines, these standards, and the idea of these regulations, as Corey is giving us, and the mentoring to start applying this knowledge. Thank you very much, Corey, for your intervention. And now we welcome Mirta Leiva. She is the president of the Commitment of Promotion of AIAC and the direct person responsible for gender perspective in the Inter-American Corporation of Integration. Welcome, Mirta. Thank you, Ferney. Isabella has my presentation. Please, if you can share it. A big hug to all the participants of this webinar. I want to thank the Academy of America, QICA, for the organization of this important event. As the title of this web seminar refers to the from sensitization to recognition in the cooperation IAAC, I will talk about our cooperation in the field of gender perspective. This is the background information. In 2025, the IAAC started an institutional process to incorporate in a more structured way the gender focus of the different technical, management, and participation activities of the stakeholders. The reasons for incorporating this as part of the work plan of IAAC at the international level, international bodies that have already been incorporated as part of their agenda, the topic of gender, the different international cooperations that they demand that the gender topic has to be included as part of the requirement of the organization. Also, the support of the sustainable development of the United Nations, whose goal is to achieve gender equality and empower women and girls. Also, considering this background information through the Subcommittee of Promotion of IAAC, the proposal was submitted to the Executive Committee for its approval and to start actions to strengthen the focus on gender as to the conformity assessment, conformance assessment. The Executive Committee has approved this proposal by means of the resolution number 100 of 2025. With this resolution, AAC recognizes the importance of promoting equality opportunities, visualize the problem of women as part of the quality ecosystem in the assessment bodies, in the accreditation bodies, and this is how we started this process. Next, please. Now, we will talk about the actions and the different activities that were approved. So IAAC can develop. We allocate the promotion committee to develop activities oriented to promoting gender perspective as to the assessment of conformity assessment. The decision was to organize activities to gender campaigns for having regional dialogues, discussions, and approved ideas were to organize an annual webinar to celebrate Women's Day as to the accredited conformity. In March, because it is the International Women's Day, the idea is to visualize and recognize the contribution of women in the different roles in the field of accreditation and assessment of conformity assessment. Another very important activity that was approved was the development of the award to leading women as to conformity assessment. Our winner will be part of the next panel for this event. We have also approved the activities regarding training, elaboration of educational materials to perspective, gender focus, and inclusive language to promote the training of AAC, OEC, and other stakeholders. So these have been the activities that were approved, and now we will introduce the activities that were implemented. This is the event, the International Day, Women's Day, that was March. This was the first web seminar that gathered leading women on accreditation and assessment, conformity assessment accreditators to discuss leadership, governance, and equity in America. We had 19 speakers and 324 participants. This activity was divided into blocks to make people aware of the experience of these women in the different environments where they work related to conformity as accredited conformity assessment. The topics developed in the webinar were, well, we had five panels. One, women leading the accreditation world. In this panel, we had women who are leading international cooperation of accreditation. Panel 2, women who represent IAAC as to global governance in accreditation. As to cooperation, we have leading women that represent us at level of international bodies that promote accreditation, and they were part of the panel. Panel 3, women leading the accreditation in the American continent, to know the challenges and represented leadership of some of the NSBs in America. Panel 4, women, equity, inclusion, and participation in regional cooperation in accreditation, challenges and opportunities for Americas and the Caribbean, to know the experience is to women representation in the accreditation bodies, cooperation, and the support provided for the development of conformity assessment, accredited assessment. And last, we had Panel 5, Women Leading the Transformation of Quality Across the Americas and the Caribbean, with the participation of very important women, of the stakeholders, members of IAAC to know their challenges and the role of leading their organizations. Next. Here we see the faces of those women who participated as speakers in this very important and successful event. We had our president, Andrea Melo, the president of IAAC, Orelo, of the Accreditation, European Accreditation Community, Evans, and Ms. Maribel Lopez, the Mexican entity of accreditation and member of this also Charmaine Welker from the Colombian, Forward from the US, Marta Mejia from Mexico, Nia de Soma from OUA from Uruguay, Alba Cabrera from the NSB from Paraguay, Alejandra Delar from OSA, Lisa Madrid, Celia Alfaro, Ibel Castel, and Carolina Dondu, and Leandra Martinez and Banda Lunes. So we had the participation of a good number of participants that gathered in one same event, a group of women whose experience, whose trajectory is very important in this field. I only have 10 minutes, so the next slide. This is just more images. And now I would like to highlight that all these events from IAAC, we have the recordings and you can watch them in the YouTube channels of our corporation. In this slide, you can see the next event that was a very important activity for AAAC, that is the award as to conformity, accredited conformity assessment women. This award recognized women who, from their leadership role of an assessment body, accredited assessment body by an accreditation body of AAC, has promoted confidence nor technical commitment as part of the organization. Here we have some information. The launch was March 19th. The winner was appointed on the Women's Day, and the winner was present this event. Here you have the visual image of our award. This symbol, IAAC Women to Leader Award, was to the leading women. This is a feminine representation in the American continent, in the Americas. You can see the profile of a woman that symbolizes the women participation in the accredited community. We had the participation of 22 candidates from 10 countries across the Americas: Peru, Colombia, US, Paraguay, Panama, Costa Rica, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and Brazil. And in the next slide, we will see the finalists of our award: Dalis Rovira from Panama, Luisa Fernanda Toro from Colombia, Gabriela Marmol from Ecuador, Jessica Patel from the US, and Araceli Gonzalez from Mexico. So in the next slide, we have our winner, the award winner of the accredited conformity assessment, Araceli Gonzalez Morales from Mexico. Congratulations. And here, the award, the prize, is with the support of PT from Germany, a completely paid award in 2026, and she will have the possibility to participate in the stakeholders committee meetings, subcommittee meetings, and the business meeting and the General Assembly. And on IAAC, we're trying to apply a committee participation for her participation this year and free membership, full membership for this year as a stakeholder of IAAC. And she will have a space during the assembly to introduce her projects to the international community, and she will share with us 1 week with the representatives of the accreditation bodies and the stakeholders, as well as all the members of IAAC. Once again, thank you very much. I want to thank PTB for supporting us in this event. And now, future actions that IAAC will implement in the field of gender. We still need to perform training activities, preparation of documents, promotion material on gender perspective, gender focus, inclusive language, to speak about the possibilities of IAAC accreditation bodies and all the different bodies and the stakeholders to somehow get a understanding and application of gender focus by providing conceptual tools and practices that will allow to a better understanding on this topic. And also, we have approved an event next year, in March next year, in the framework of the International Women's Day celebration. And these are the actions performed by IAAC referring to gender focus. We wanted to recognize women for the work and implementation of infrastructure in Americas and the world. And as I already said, all these actions were due to the support of PTB and the Executive Secretariat of IASC, and Mr. Chaparro is supporting us as the moderator of this event, but he has a QICA shirt or jersey representing them. We've gone beyond my time, but if there's any question, you can do it on the chat, and thank you very much.
Gracias, Mirta, por esta interesante presentación, por el trabajo
Thank
que
you,
están
Mirta, for
realizando
such an
en la
interesting
Cooperación
presentation
Interamericana de
and
Acreditación
your
para
efforts
fortalecer los temas de
at
género.
the
Recordarles
IAC
también a
to
todos
strengthen
que
gender
sus preguntas
subjects.
están siendo respondidas
We would like
directamente en el chat.
to remind
Donde
you
no
that
tengamos
your
respuesta,
questions are being
estaremos
answered in
haciendo llegar
writing.
por correo
If we
electrónico
don't have an
también
answer, we will
la
send you an
respuesta a su
email
pregunta y
with
también el
the
material que se
responses
está
to your
presentando
questions
en este
and also
momento.
the material
Recordarles
shared with
que
you today.
actividad
Let
está
me
siendo grabada
remind you
y
that
se
this
pondrá en
activity
nuestro
is
canal de
being
YouTube
recorded
de las
and
tres
will be
organizaciones del
uploaded
STEAM
to the three
y
organizations'
IAC.
YouTube channels,
Entonces, no se
STEAM,
preocupen que van
COPANT,
a tener
and
toda esta información
IAAC.
disponible
You
para
will
ustedes.
have all the information available
Vamos a
to
dar
you.
paso en este
Now we will
momento
give the
a conocer
floor
ya el panel de
to
experiencias que será moderado
the
por
experience
Mónica
panel
Muñoz. Damos la
moderated
bienvenida a
by
Mónica Muñoz,
Monica
también a María
Munoz,
del Rosario
whom we would
González,
like to
directora de
welcome,
la
as
Central
well
de
as Maria
Metrología
del
de
Rosario
Colombia, Liz
González,
Cordero, gestora
director
de
of
proyectos de
Colombia's
normalización
Metrology
ambiental de Costa
Institute,
Rica,
Liz Cordero
Araceli
from
González,
COPAN
directora de
Costa
operaciones
Rica,
de Food
and
Processing y
Araceli
también la ganadora
González,
del Premio
IAC
Internacional
rep,
de
and
Evaluación de la
also
Conformidad que
awarded
mencionaba hace un
the
momento
prize
Mirta en su intervención.
as
Bienvenidas todas
indicated by
y
Mirta in
les
her
dejo, Mónica,
indication.
en este importante panel.
Monica, you have the floor to
Muchas
start
gracias, Ferney,
talking
por hacer
in such an
ese
important
pase
panel.
a este
Thank
segundo
you,
momento de
Ferney,
nuestro evento, que es
for
el
helping
panel.
us
Les doy
jump
la
on to the
bienvenida
second
a María del
uh,
Rosario, a Liz y
stage.
a Araceli.
I would
Es un
like to
placer para
welcome
mí y
Maria
un
del
honor para mí
Rosario, Liz, and
poder moderar
Araceli.
este
It's
panel.
my
Y antes
pleasure
de
and
iniciar
honor
con
to
las
moderate
preguntas, que
this
la
panel.
intención de
Before
este
getting
espacio es que
started with the
cambiemos un poquito la
questions,
dinámica,
we
digamos,
intend to
tengamos más
change the
esa
method
conversación,
here,
vamos
rather to
bajando un
have a
nivel regional a uno
conversation
más nacional
going from a
y poder
regional
ir
to a
conectando con esas
national
prácticas, con
level,
esos
and to
desafíos
connect to those
que nos
practices
vamos
and
enfrentando ya a
challenges
nivel de
that we
institutos y
will
de
face
organismos que están
institute
trabajando en la IC. Antes de entrar en
wise,
eso, me
and
gustaría hacer
also
una
for the
pequeña pausa
organization's
para
part
quienes nos
of
acompañan hoy,
IAC.
que somos
Today, we're like 220 participants. This event has caught people's interest, and I would like to reflect why we're talking about gender perspective in the infrastructure quality, emphasizing that quality is a synonym for trust. The quality business, the sense behind the quality is making sure that products and services meet the requirements of our customers and clients, women, men, children, companies, arenas, sectors, and the relevance of that diversity of the service we provide, the capacity to acknowledge that there are differences, needs, sizes of bodies and forces and strengths and cultural capacities and capabilities from the technical standpoint of quality organizations and from that those efforts as an organization that can promote leadership and space for all people, women, men, any role they may have, may prosper at their organizations. This is the 53,800 standard tells us of going in a cross-sectorial, cross-institutional manner. Given this context, I would like to start with the questions, and we will start like this. I will start by asking the interviewees a specific questions, and then we will share the questions among all of us. Maria del Rosario, my pleasure to have you here. As Ferney has told us, she's the director of the Colombian Metrology Institute. Maria del Rosario, as STEM has come up with some preliminary results of this survey, I would like to know what was the finding that surprised you the most, if any, and how it reflects on reality and the body you lead. Thank you very much, Monica, for the invitation. I would like to thank my panel colleagues. It's my pleasure and an honor to be with you today. I'm going to shift your question a bit. I'm not surprised, but I'm emotional, and I would like to congratulate the region that represents the Metrology Institutes to be asking about this, because metrology in itself was very focused on men. I'm not talking about women as women, but the historic burden on metrology, which necessarily has a major impact on this type of conversation. Imagine the challenge of women development in science, the biggest challenge in metrology, which is a historically men-led activity. So finding the reason why is very interesting. We're talking about masculine strength, the provider men who could go out and women stayed back home. This interest behind numbers that Sonia has shared has some history and humanity behind. So I'm very happy, very emotional, and I'm happy to have Sim make decisions based on information. This information shared by Sonia lets us have equitable technical opportunities to build on top of that. And colleagues have talked about percentages, the need to have indicators, and I will have focus on one indicator. 26% of answers said they did have indicators to measure progress. That is a good. My kudos to that. because that helps us make decisions or make use of decisions made. For instance, the allocation of resources. This type of initiative, as many in life, require investment, which sometimes we are walking on a blind path because you don't know what the priorities are, what value group we want to take care of, which priorities are there out there. We can see there are some measurements, some are regular, some are irregular, but this is totally natural in the roads we want to walk. What I think is interesting about what Sim is doing is that this is the right time to know how I want to lead, what I want to promote, what for. And I'm going to talk about something most of you know, the famous golden circle in how we communicate, men and women, to get to the action. People follow us not for what we do, but because of why we do it. And that why is the biggest treasure. Why are we conducting surveys for? Why do we want to know the access to the guidelines, such as Corey said? What measurements we have before thinking of indicators is why I need them. Another interesting thing at the survey, you will have seen that we have actors, stakeholders, groups of interest. We need to know which value group we want to impact, and not just SIM, but IAC and ECOP and QICA, but the interactions with the other value groups, because we want to have an impact on them. What is the contribution to that inspiration, to the purpose we have? It's very valuable to know that SIM is asking these questions from the type of questions we're going to ask, where we're going to get with the results. We have information segregation, but what will be most valued of those results to add them to the roadmap Sonia shared. She talked about the main points to see where we go, but what the most important thing is why we're doing it. Corey said we have guidelines and policies, but we are finding situations such as the fact of not having tools, same with other experiences. So sharing among them is extremely important to move forward. We will not have a one size fits all approach because things are different, but even inside the bodies are different. We have local gender perspectives, uh, measuring units that are different, but we need to have an ongoing effort, and that is what we imagine about the questions asked. I think what Sonia showed is very interesting. This An entity alone cannot do it. The value groups need to be listened to and need to get involved in this joint construction. Additionally, how we design a strategy internally in the region, organizational culture, who we are interacting with, to look at how the gender perspective filters into the contact or communication networks, and how we're going to deal with the results, not just to allocate resources, as I have said, but to focus the actions that will have an impact. And we've seen many already. The Women's Award, documents, measurement, participation committees, in standardization committees, but why I'm doing it, how I strengthen our missions, the number of structural hurdles, especially in STEAM careers and programs, and we have seen this, will be more than one. We will be surprised at the number of structural hurdles, and in each one, we need to see how others are doing so as we can walk on top what has already been constructed. constructed. We need to have diagnosis, to have the evidence. I hope we can have your participation. This is an invitation, as Sonia said, and be compassionate to ourselves. This is a progressive, measurable implementation. We're taking one step forward and one step back. This is basically the response to your question. And the second question, how the results are reflected in Colombia's metrology body. Let me tell you that we have already started with mentoring. We are implementing this. We have a model called Science, Politics, and Inclusion Strategic Exchange, because we look at this from strategy and we want to have leaders' commitment. And also, as it is a research center, we want to have science involvement, but taking into account the political environment we need to operate in with the involvement of stakeholders. The experience has been marvelous because we have acknowledged that we need to get ready. Being mentors is not just hiring a mentor or a coach that will be experienced, that thanks to the Lord in the country and the region we have them, but how to train trainers for the Metrology Institute. We have been doing this training for 3 months. We are learning how to be mentors. We have a group of mentees. And the nice thing is that from Colombia's quality infrastructure, we are getting the involved of Icon Tech and the other organizations. We acknowledge the rigorous character, science, and the relevance of becoming leaders. If I'm director an institute, doesn't give me the knowledge of how to do it and how to inspire people, how to communicate the purpose of knowing what we're doing and what for. Behind the numbers and the results, there is the will and the sensitivity of learning, the passion to know how to do what we do it. Of course, we are within the frameworks of what women have been doing in different organizations. With the surveys we have run inside the Onaki Delicot to see what the hurdles identified are, discrimination, how to trigger harassment protocols, for instance, and starting implementing this equity model based on evidence. It is a horizontal mentorship. Science is not only in the hands of researchers, but also the ones that are behind us writing contracts, the cross-sectional approach. We need to understand what the reasons why for possible inclusions or exclusion reasons where we can identify gaps, and I will share these mentorship results later on that is not widely known. So we need to train to learn how to build mentoring networks and testing with mentees so that they can become mentors in building trust, as you well said. Thank you very much, Maria del Rosario. I think that we are in synchrony with some ways of thinking and conveying these thoughts. You highlighted the why, the what for, how to communicate what we are doing is for what, and identifying gaps in terms of gender perspective is not one-dimensional, but it requires to be understood from the social, cultural, historical perspective of the organization and toward the service. So that will be the end, Maria del Rosario. For you, I would like to talk to Liz Cordero and see what they think. You are in this organization in TECO, and you have had different experiences. And as Maria del Rosario said, for metrology, perhaps the big challenge has to do with this link between women and science and progress and change
que vamos viviendo. Pero
that
para
we
la
go through.
normalización, ¿cuál
But
crees que
for
sea esa
standardization,
brecha?
what do
¿Cómo
you
fue la
believe the gap
necesidad?
is?
¿Qué es
How
lo que
what the
ves
need was?
desde tu
What you
experiencia?
can see from your
Muchas
experience?
gracias, Mónica.
Thank you
Muy
very
agradecida
much,
de tener la
Monica.
invitación para contar un
Thank you
poco
for your
nuestra historia,
invitation
¿verdad?
to
Ha
tell us
sido
about
de
our
evolución en
background,
revolución.
our
Todo
story of
empezó con
evolution.
una
Everything
firma
started
de parte de
with
UNES, la Declaratoria de UNES,
signing
que
the
procuraba
declaration
encontrar
of UNES that tried
estos
to
institutos
find
que
these institutes
que trabajen por las
that
normas con
work
perspectiva de género.
with the
Entonces, para contarles un
standards
poco
related to
todo lo que
gender
hemos hecho
perspective. So
y
just
cómo
to
lo
tell
hemos
you
ido
what we have
evolucionando,
done and how we
empezamos con
have
un diagnóstico
evolved, we
en
started with a
donde al inicio
diagnosis
sometimos
where
una
at the
encuesta
very
abierta con los
beginning we started
miembros
with
del
an open
comité. Sin
survey
embargo,
with the committee
encontramos
members.
cierta
However,
resistencia,
we
¿verdad?
found
Ciertas
some
respuestas que nos hicieron
resistance to
replantear
certain
y
answers that
dar
made us
el pasito para
rethink
atrás, ¿verdad? Como
this. And this
mencionaba
was a
María del Rosario, ¿verdad? Que
a
a
step
veces nos
backwards, as
cuesta.
Maria del Rosario said.
Entonces, al
It's
final,
hard
¿verdad? De ese
sometimes. So
diagnóstico, la
the,
decisión fue,
from the
vamos a
diagnosis,
enfocarnos
the
solo en
decision
participación
was
con datos que
let's
nosotros podemos
concentrate on
tener desde
participation with
nuestra
data that we can
información,
have
¿verdad?
from
Desde
our
los ponentes, sean
information
nuestras bases de datos, los miembros
available,
del
our
comité, los mujeres, ¿verdad?
databases, member
Entonces, a partir
committees,
de ahí,
etc. So
enfocamos
based on
nuestro
that,
plan de
we
acción en
focused
género en
our
participación
action plan in
principalmente
gender,
en los miembros,
mainly in the
en los
participation
comités
of
técnicos
the
y
technical
nuestro alcance es
committees and
específico
our
para
scope
el
specific
área de
for
normalización, ¿verdad? Para el
the
departamento de
standardization
normalización.
area, for the
Y esto es
standardization
importante hacer
department
la diferencia, ¿verdad? Porque
specifically.
una
And this is
declaratoria
very
precisamente
important
habla de
because the
entes
declaration
que trabajan en
refers
la
to
perspectiva de género.
entities
Entonces
that work
nosotros
in gender
empezamos un plan
perspective.
piloto
So we
específico
started
para el
with a
departamento de
specific
normalización, sin
pilot
embargo,
plan for the
¿verdad? Nosotros
standardization
tenemos otras
department. However,
áreas en
we
donde
have
podemos
other areas
en algún
where
momento
it's
esperamos llegar
probably at
a
some point in time
involucrarlos en ese proceso.
we will try
Entonces,
to get involved in that
específicamente
process. So
para el departamento de
specifically for
normalización,
the
nosotros lo
standardization
enfocamos en tres
department,
fases. La
we
primera
focused this on
era
three
la
phases.
recopilación
The
de
first
datos
one was the collection
desagregados,
of
¿verdad?
deaggregated
Crear como una red de
data,
expertos y ahí
create
lo
a
que hicimos
network
fue
of
activar un
experts,
comité
and we
técnico
activated
que
a
ya
technical
habíamos en ese
committee.
momento
And
un
we had
comité
already
técnico
had back at
relacionado
that
con
time a
género,
technical committee
pero lo
related to
volvimos a
gender,
activar
but we
pensando en que
activated it
necesitamos
again,
un lugar donde
thinking
se le
that we
podrían llevar
need a
todas las
place
preguntas
where
relacionadas con
all the
género
questions related
que
to
pudieran tener el resto de los
gender
comités
might be
técnicos.
developed
Entonces,
with
cuando se
related
hablaba de
to
la
technical committees.
declaratoria de
Also,
tener
there was
una
a
persona
declaration
experta
of
en género
having an
en cada comité
expert
técnico
person
para la
in
realidad
each
de
technical
comunidades viables,
committee.
¿verdad? Entonces,
So
lo que optamos fue por
the idea was
sensibilización a
to
nuestro
the
departamento,
idea
¿verdad? En
was
este caso, a las personas
sensitization in our
operadoras directos de
department,
normalización, que son
and
los que
so
están
people
como
who
representantes
manage
del
the
equipo en cada comité técnico.
standards
Entonces,
are
ya
involved,
con
and they
eso garantizamos que
represented
teníamos
this. So with this, we guaranteed that
una
we would
persona,
have
con
a
una
person
sensibilización en
with
género, ¿verdad?
some
Porque ya llamarlos expertos
sensitization in
sería
the
más
field of
complicado,
gender. We
y el
cannot call
comité de
them
expertos, que era el que
experts,
nos
but the
iba a dar
expert
respuesta
committee would help
consulta.
us solve any
Después, en la
kind of
segunda
question.
fase, lo que
Then
nos
the second
interesaba era
phase, we
conocer
were interested
a cuáles
to
normas nos
know
aplica lo que es
which
la
are the
perspectiva de
standards
género,
where the gender
aumentar la
perspective is
participación en
applied,
nuestros
increase
comités
participation
técnicos,
in our technical
mantener la
committees,
sensibilización y
keeping
ampliarla a los comités
sensitization
técnicos,
and
¿verdad? Porque
expanding
ya
it to the
recibimos
TCs, since
en esta
we
etapa inicial
received
ciertas,
this is the initial
como
stage,
no estar
certain
tan de acuerdo, ¿verdad? Sino más que todo era, bueno, vamos
reluctance
a ver
or
qué
not
les
being
proveo,
not
vamos a
fully
decirles por qué es
um,
importante trabajar en lo que son
being
las áreas de
in
perspectiva de
agreement
género, ¿verdad?
and
Y en esa etapa de
well, so
participación es donde
in
nos
that
encontramos ahorita.
at that stage,
Entonces,
this is
ahí
a
lo que
stage where we
nosotros
are now.
buscamos es
So
aumentar
the
la
intention
participación de
is
las
to
mujeres en los comités
increase the
técnicos, ¿verdad?
participation
Porque
of
a
women in
diferencia de
TCs,
lo que
because
sería
different
la
from
metodología y la acreditación,
metrology and
consideramos que
accreditation, we believe
participar
that
activamente en la construcción de esos
participating
requisitos
actively in
técnicos
the
durante una
construction of the
etapa de
technical
normalización puede ser
requirements
que les
during the
agilice
standardization
un
stage
poco más esos
may
otros
somehow
procesos que serían de
stabilize the other
metodología y
processes
acreditación, que ya
related
van
to
más
metrology
enfocados
and
a la
accreditation, which are more
estructura técnica.
focused to the technical
Entonces, para eso
structure
hicimos algunos
or
cambios
infrastructure.
en nuestra
So for
invitación.
that, we made
Hemos
some changes in
aumentado
the
en
invitation.
3
We
años, si
have
mal no recuerdo, de un
increased in the last
32%
3 years
de
from
participación en el
32%
global
of
de
participation in the
normalización a un
global of
75% de
standardization to
mujeres. Sin embargo, ¿verdad?
37% of
Todavía
women
tenemos un
participation.
73%
However, we have
apenas
today
de mujeres en nuestra
37% of our committees where the participation is lower. 73%. It's important to highlight that the performance as to the data of technical committees respond to the structural gaps. The care committees have more participation of women, others have less participation. So we have mapped all this better, and we have set up some indicators to be able to sustain this throughout the time. This would be stage number 3. Ideally, this will be something that is not because we have signed a declaration, but we started in this way. But our action plan has evolved, and at some point in time, this will stay throughout the time. In order for it to stay, or we have to pay attention to procedures, training for new people. Well, for example, now we are seeing if we can have a module for a training module where any new person who comes in, well, we can explain all the progress we have made. Also, what Corey mentioned, we are now looking for the way to implement the ISO guidelines to our technical standards. Corey mentioned something very important. This makes me wonder if we really have these standards. My question is, what kind of standards am I going to apply these to? Development, or as an entity, we as an agent, we try to adopt more. We adopt more of the standards, more than writing new ones. How are we going to align this to our international participation? If we are checking a standard related to catheters, or where we need the gender perspective on design, but the standard maybe the question is, how are we participating in this international panel to provide our view, like, well, we did this, ISO developed this, and we have identified this, that this should be there, but it is not. So if we cannot do it ourselves in the field of research and development, maybe at least this little issue that will make us go back and say, hey, see that we have identified this as part of the standard. So maybe in this way we could have that change. In general terms, I believe that. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you perfectly well. In general terms, as I was saying, we have many challenges. At the beginning, we were only focused on people. So at the international level, this will have to do how fast or how slowly we are going forward. We have new people now who are interested in supporting their project. So we are starting again. I think this is a small step for the world, that is including gender perspective in the field of standardization. But it's important to know that if we have already started and had some progress, well, definitely we will not leave it just there. We like to get aligned to what is happening at regional level and international, regional and international. That's why we're taking reference of what is being performed at COPANT or ISO level, so that we adapt our action plan and we get aligned to the needs. Now that Corey mentioned this, we are adjusting to that next step that COPANT, or the stage that COPANT has, and this is part of what we want to do. And now we have a tool to apply to the standards, and I would like to see how others are doing this. So I think I have covered the question mainly, but if you have any other question, please, I'm available. Thank you very much, Lisa. I think your answer has been really very complete, and you have taken us to the practice, with the integration of gender perspective means and the perspective of a body, in this case, Costa Rica, and it has you have added a component that has helped us understand how different NSBs live it in different ways. Some some of them have a lot of activities in the field of developing new standards. But in your case, you said it's different. You adopt the standards. And I see that there are many different NSBs today connected in the webinar that will make some comments probably. So you're saying that standardization as part of your road has been recognizing the need to integrate a standard, a commitment that comes from something more international, regional, and that is adapted to the local level. And you have also said that this goes in line to what Maria del Rosario mentioned before, with the identification on why we do this, what for, and then we speak about data or having data available to identify indicators and goals that tells us that we are going along that path and to sustain it. So with this, that has nourished this a lot, we go to the next pillar on quality. And now I would like to welcome Araceli. Thank you very much for being here. And again, I would like to recognize your leadership, the award that you received short time ago, a recognition by IAAC. And my question to you has to do with this. What does this type of recognition or this award means for you from your experience to visualize and motivate the feminine or women's leadership in conformity assessment?
Thank you, Monica. This helped me thank BTV and all that support us because this reflects women's efforts. I would like to thank IAC because Mirta has explained what this process is all about and its foundations, but this lets me be with you, make these issues visible. The award is a great commitment, but it implies thanking the Mexican accreditation body that is bringing me forward, a group that Corey mentioned, the Musica group that lets me share and become wealthier in my activities. I would like to thank the body I am part with, and I will then explain how we can leave the gender perspective, equality, and all. This lets me share and be with you. Talking about your question on what the award means, even when it has been granted to myself as a person, as an individual, it is the output of a collective effort, the commitment of many women and men from different conformity assessments that promote culture based on competencies, equality, equal opportunities. Accreditation in general and conformity assessment is a highly technical sector. All decisions need to get the support of evidence, knowledge, of course, professional ethics, and very specific assessments or results. That's why this recognition shows a big message. Leadership lets us reflect women, many of which are here today, and shows that this is genderless, built on experience, skills, integrity, and measurable results, as it was said. The application of those items to indicators and outputs lets us share genderless leadership elements. I think this recognition is very important for its multiplier effect, making visible different feminine reference that let people join this professional arena, developing trust to take on new challenges. The visualization of this knowledge lets us aspire to and invite more women to aspire to leadership positions. At the time, it lets organizations reflect on how to create environments where people can feel confident about and grow. The best way of inspiring is showing that technical excellence and equal opportunities are completely compatible. When an organization promotes talent without stereotypes, this lets the organization improve quality in decision making and strengthen trust in society. These type of awards, apart from the enthusiasm and appreciation that I feel, creates a reference point to build opportunities and creating spaces from objective evidence that professional character is genderless, where women and men can stand on equal footing and aspire to recognitions such as the one that I was given. Talking about the learning I get from this award, and I've said this a number of times, has allowed me to identify that beyond establishing sensitization and dissemination conditions, this is not enough. It has to be part of concrete, measurable actions, and even when in each organization or conformity assessment bodies, courses may be given, campaigns may be engaged into, the commemoration of anniversaries is part of the awareness, but it's not enough. It has to become part of specific actions that will be translated into changes in the way to manage people, in the way to make decisions, because if otherwise, this can be a limited impact. This may be part of rhetorics rather than the application of precise, measurable actions, which that we are so used to engage into. These changes actually bring about, and also sustainable change is to include these sessions as part of organization management systems, to include the gender perspective in each organization, not in a separate manner, but as part of controls, specific actions, so that we can review and revise all conformity assessment processes. A core action in our activity which needs to be included in all processes associated to talents, to people, human resources, recruitment, development, promotion, uh, performance assessment, to focus on leadership and to be able to make decisions and secure that there are actions based on objective criteria, especially competence criteria which are genderless. Assessment, conformity assessment is absolutely used to working on based on evidence, indicators focused on continuous improvement. This needs to be applied to substantive equality, labor equality. A declaration or a statement is not enough. We need to measure progress of the commitment, results with precise targets, strengthening each action we implement, and creating actions to go back, as Maria del Rosario said, to go back one step, to revisit, to create better actions with better results, with the looking at the target we want to get to. I've learned that leadership from senior leaders is important. The support of senior leaders is important so that when a decision is made, it permeates throughout the organization with a fixed path, with a defined goal, and then substantive equality as part of the strategy in planning, in an institutional element that will link the organizational culture, and that the actions may be perceived, conducted inside the organization across the board, not as isolated initiatives, but as a final way to work, to become part of the organization's culture. If I had to share the most valuable learning, I would say that equality benefits the whole organization. It's not favoring specific sectors or women, but it is favoring or working stringently with women's participation, but of every single person, building arenas where people can develop their talents without complications or conditioning observations or differentiation. We need to contribute with their capacities and having access to growth opportunity. Equality is not a social subject only, but it becomes an element that strengthens quality, innovation, institutional trust, and organization sustainability. If I had to summarize my experience in just one idea, I could say that equality is not reached by solely changing the way we think and culture, but it consolidates the way we design our processes, the mechanisms we use, we make decisions and measure the results. The equality infrastructure builds trust based on objective evidence. Equality needs to use this type of evidence as well. You need to live this. Monica, I get so passionate about it. I'm so sorry.
No, muchas
Maybe
gracias por
I've gone
sí,
over the
hice
board.
respuesta
Thank you
adicional
very
hasta que
much.
incluso
You did
iba más allá de lo
answer
que respondiste
things
o
that
mi segunda
were
pregunta que tenía
beyond,
preparada, si lo
because
hubiera
the
hecho.
second
Yo
question
creo
you have
que
already
las
answered.
tres invitadas que
I
tengo el
believe
honor
that the three
de
guests
tener en
I
esta
have
mesa el
the
día de
honor
hoy
to have at the table
tienen una amplia
today
trayectoria, es sin duda
have
la
a
forma de la
long
práctica que
story
les da sentido al
behind
pensamiento
with the
el
background, the
pensamiento crítico que
thinking, the
tienen, ¿no? De
critical
las
thinking
experiencias
that they have
que están liderando desde
about
sus organismos.
the organizations you are
Desafortunadamente, el
leading.
tiempo no nos da. Vamos a tener que hacer
Unfortunately,
un segundo evento
time is a
solo para hablar
tyrant,
de esto,
and
porque
so
la verdad es que nos
we
quedamos con ganas de
will
conocer
need
más
another
de lo que
meeting
están
because
haciendo, por ejemplo, en el Zoom
we
María del
want to know
Rosario, lo que están
what you are
aprendiendo
doing,
ya
same Maria
en
del
Inteco y de lo
Rosario
que nos
at
has compartido a
Inteco,
Excel. Y yo creo que
and
en general nos
what
estamos llevando muchos
you have
aprendizajes de aquí.
shared.
Voy a
Liz,
dejarles con un
we
acuerdo
get a lot of
de un
learnings, and
minuto.
I'm
Hagamos una
leaving
palabra de
you
cierre para que demos
1 minute
respuesta
for a
también
closure,
a
and
los
so
siguientes
as to
invitados que
give
tenemos.
to
Entonces,
make
para
room
esas
for the
palabras
next
de cierre, a mí me gustaría
presentation. I would
preguntarles
like to ask you,
si
ladies,
tuvieran
if
que
you
compartir un
had
mensaje
to
para
share a
uno de los
message
organismos que
for one of
que están
the
conectados hoy
organizations
sobre qué
connected to
funciona o
the
qué no
Zoom
funciona
today, what does
respecto
work,
de
what
pasar
doesn't
de la
work, as to
sensibilización a la
going from
implementación. O sea, el
awareness or
objetivo de este seminario era justamente este, pasemos
sensitization
de
to
hablar de la importancia y
implementation.
empecemos a
So let's
demostrar
talk
que
about
se
the
puede hacer y
relevance
que lo
and to
estamos
show
haciendo.
that it can be done,
Entonces,
and we are doing
les
it.
cedo un
So
minuto en
I
el
will
mismo
give
orden
the
que
floor
hicimos, un
one
minuto cada
minute
una para
in
sus
the same
palabras
order we had
de
for
cierre.
your
María del
closing
Rosario.
words. Maria del Rosario.
First recommendation, let's sit down on time. In the case of mentoring, this is one of the many times we have to sit down on time. Standardization, metrology, and accreditation as to quality infrastructure. And as mentors, we're getting training at the same time because standardization, metrology, and accreditation have different personalities. And this implies talking about the person. We have saved time sitting down, all of us together. First recommendation. Second recommendation, training as mentors. I have realized three things this partially. Let's see. But I have realized the three things. The sector of infrastructure of quality or quality infrastructure has to do with competition. We don't need a competent image for gender perspective. We need more people leading. And I have also realized that we confuse trust with competency. We have that. What we lack is confidence. Waiting to be ready has no price. While we get the perfect price, something will happen. So we think and opening up spaces, speaking up and preparing those who come afterwards, after us with generosity that will also be part of building this trust and this confidence. And the last recommendation, think about the map, those 6 pieces, and we will concentrate on training the human being so that we can really receive guidelines, measurements, the results, human beings in essence. These are 6 key pieces. Why? Performing or acting to become men and women ready, brave enough to convert ourselves. Third, influence, it's a Maswell theory. Fourth, the style, depending on the context, the art of being able to be there to communicate, that would be fourth. Fifth one, growth mentality, because we want to follow and see how that road influences on the contact network. And sixth, visibility without any ego plus carriage. That would be my recommendation as to the micro experience that we are building from quality infrastructure. Thank you very much for your red generosity, Maria del Rosario. We will take notes and we will listen to more. Liz, what are your closing words? Very inspiring what Maria del Rosario just said. Well, as a next steps, I think the most important thing for the organization that is starting would be the diagnosis and the evidence. And also, apart from that, being aligned with what Maria Rosario said, a leadership committee is very important in these fields, so that this is something that stays throughout the time, that remains. I think, from my point of view, we are along the good path. One of the things that have been most difficult is sensitization. That's why I totally agree with what Maria del Rosario said. This is because of personal conviction. So we have some generational barriers and all that. So dealing with that should not make us feel without any energy. We have to learn how to manage this. This would be my recommendation. However, I believe that based on personal conviction, we cannot remove our finger from that line. We have to keep working on that. Maybe baby steps, but we have realized that we have made progress from my point of view, from my experience. First, good diagnosis, generate some evidences, get supported in leadership, and define clear measures so that it stays throughout the time, that things that will allow us to know that we are going forward, that we are making progress. When we feel motivated, we will see we have covered good ground. And thank you very much, Liz. Very interesting, connecting with what Maria del Rosario also said. Araceli, in 1 minute or less, what would be your closing words? Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. I would like to say that please take into account that there is no perfect organization. All of us have opportunities to keep learning. In quality of infrastructure, we work to generate confidence. These principles will help us build confidence in our principles, being more inclusive. I would like to invite you all, those bodies that are starting this road. This should not be an obligation, additional obligation, but an opportunity to strengthen your mechanisms, your processes, your management systems, to develop talents and contribute to a more representative quality infrastructure, ready, more diverse, that responds to all the challenges we have as a region. And I would like to finish saying that quality and structure, they require same thing, quality infrastructure, and we open this up so that all people develop without any distinction and they develop talents. We strengthen all of our organizations and also the confidence of the society as a whole in their quality infrastructure. Thank you, Araceli. Thank you very much, Maria Rosario, Araceli, Liz, for being here with us today and for sharing from your practice. And those who have accompanied today, please get involved and network with other people who are working on that. Remember things, networks like Música or the communities of PTB, etc., and mentoring. Try to share ideas with others so that we can keep learning. Ferney, the word is yours. The microphone is yours. Thank you. Very interesting panel, very constructive. I really believe that this has left very good, very important lessons. Quality has no gender. That's why I am here as well, and you are leading and telling us about your experiences. The activity related to inclusion goes beyond our field. We also speak about competencies and trust and confidence. So that will give an extra step to international perspective. And now we will give the floor to Michelle, representative of UNICE, and she will share lessons learned in practice on gender perspective in the system of quality infrastructure at international level. Yes, Michelle, I hope you have pronounced your surname well. I have practiced it, but I'm not sure. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting me to join this session. This has been really enriching. It is fantastic to hear about the excellent work that is happening in this region. And I love that you are broadening it, that we're looking at standards, but we're starting to look more broadly at the quality infrastructure, because I think that's a really important step. So I want to start by just sharing one image, and hopefully it will share pretty easily. Let's see. So this map shows you who has signed the UNECE Gender Declaration. And as you can see, we're doing pretty well in this part of the world. So we have a number of us that have signed the declaration. And that, signifies something, that we're trying to show the commitment to this. But also, when we sign the declaration, we commit to doing something. So we were meant to develop a gender action plan. And so right now there are 86 signatories across the world. The map shows you those who were for national standards bodies, but there's also SDOs that have signed that it wouldn't be covered on the map just because they're not a national standards body. So they've signed this declaration, and we know that this is then hopefully leading to action. And Liz talked about the action that has been taken within her organization. And so at the UNECE, we have really tried to help to provide resources that can be used to help us as we implement this. Because frankly, when we first started talking about gender responsive standards, I don't think a lot of people really knew what it was. And so one of the first steps that we did was to develop guidance on how and why we need to develop these gender responsive standards. And so that guidance is available. It is now also available in Spanish as well. And so I think that there have been links that have been put up, hopefully in the Q&A, because I'm going to reference a few things that we have that hopefully will be useful to you. And so the one, as I said, is that we've developed this guidance so that people can understand, how do we develop gender responsive standards? At the same time, we would also get feedback that people said they didn't always know where to start, right? And so when you start to develop your gender strategy, what exactly should you be doing? And so because of that, we developed a model blueprint document. And so this is a direct result of the feedback that we received that some of these organizations, this was new to them, they didn't know where to begin. And so we started to think about if we were to start, kind of where is a starting point that you can have, and then what's something that you can build towards, what should be included in there. And so I would recommend that if you want to kind of look, if this is new to you, then that can be a great resource. But sometimes it can also just be a really good confirmation that you've got things covered. And so I know when we were renewing our gender strategy at SCC this past year, I kind of looked into see like, okay, how are we faring? Are there things that we're missing? And so it can be a good resource that way. And so I really recommend that people, use that if it can be helpful to you. I want to talk about a couple other things. So I've mentioned that we've got the declaration, we've got guidance on how to do that. Within the UNECE, we think it's really important to try to build awareness. And so one of the ways that we do that is that we meet regularly. And so we have meetings, typically a virtual meeting every other month. And so we meet every 2 months to talk about this topic, to talk about things that are relevant, but we also will usually bring in a guest speaker. And the goal of that is to help, again, raise awareness and help with kind of things where we identify that there's a need or a gap. And so at our last meeting, QICA came to present, and that was really fantastic to hear about the work that they're doing and how we can bring this and help broaden the work that we're doing on gender responsive standards. Our next meeting will be on September 9th, and we will be having somebody speak to us. It's Allison Holder, and so she's from Equal Measure 2030, and she's going to be talking about how to sustain progress. Because it's one thing to start, but I do worry sometimes when it comes to gender equality that there's a bit of a perception that, well, we should just, fix this and get it done quickly. But as we know, and probably everyone here knows, gender inequality has existed for a very long time. And so we will not be fixing gender inequality within a couple of years. This is going to be a long-term commitment. We want to see progress. We would like to see faster progress. But we need to recognize that there's going to require some sustained effort. And so within this presentation, we're hoping to get some tips on how do we kind of keep the momentum going so that when people kind of get tired of the topic and say it's time to move on, when we know that we haven't completely solved it, that we don't lose that momentum. And so I would encourage you that the UNECE meetings, they are open to anyone. The timing is not really convenient for this region, and so we tend to meet at 12 p.m. Geneva time, which for me is 6 a.m. And so I'm sorry, I know it's not always convenient, but I would recommend that if this is something that you're interested, please check it out. You can check the website. If you do not receive emails, you can ask there to receive emails to be invited to this. You can reach out to me. If that doesn't work as well, I'm happy to make that connection. So again, we have these virtual meetings that you are all welcome to join at any time. We also do meet annually. So we have a hybrid meeting in Geneva every April, and these are a great opportunity to hear from others, so from other NSBs and SGOs about the work that they're doing, what is working for them, what are some of the challenges that they're having, so that we can learn from each other and again, help each other to progress. And so again, those meetings are open, people are welcome to join. And we really do want to hear from you. It helps us to know, what can we provide that would be useful. The third thing I'm just going to briefly mention, and I think it ties in really well to this, is that we are looking to broaden the work that we've done. And so, as I've mentioned, we had this gender declaration, so for gender responsive standards, and we're now looking at, maybe we should be turning this into a declaration for quality infrastructure more broadly, so that it would not just be standards bodies who can sign on to it. And so this would obviously require some modifications, but that's something that we're looking into because we do think that it's really important that we look at metrology, at conformity assessment, at the breadth of quality infrastructure to make sure that this is supported, that we can do everything to make sure that gender equality becomes embedded in our systems and our processes. And so that is something that we're doing. We've also recently released a couple of brochures that look at, why does gender matter for conformity assessment? And so these are fairly brief documents. And again, the link should be shared with them that you can just take a look and see, sometimes how can we frame this argument? Because again, when it's new to people, they don't always know where to start. They don't always know why it's important. And so this is just meant to be a small piece that you can look at and hopefully take some key speaking points that you can help to make the case to others who maybe have a hard time understanding and seeing what this is. So I'm going to be very brief, but I wanted to share those resources. I'm really, as I said, really encouraged by the work that is happening here, really happy to be a part of it. And so I would recommend if anyone, again, to please join us in the UNECE, please come, participate in our meeting, share your expertise, because it is really something where we try to learn from each other, and that adds a lot of value. So again, thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Michelle, por esta importante información.
Thank you,
Ya
Michelle, for
todos
such an
están
important
recibiendo los
piece of
links
information.
los compartió
People are
Michelle por el
getting the
chat
links
para que
shared in the
puedan
chat
informarse de una
so
mejor
that
manera.
they can
Y
get
pues bueno, damos
the
paso a
relevant
Javier
information. We will give the
para
floor
las
to
palabras de cierre.
Javier for the
Javier Arias
closing
es el vicepresidente
words.
del Sistema
Javier Arias
Interamericano
is the
de
vice
Metrología.
president
Pues
of the
Javier,
Inter-American
por
Metrology
favor.
System. Javier,
Sí,
if you
solo
would like to
confirmar que
take
me
the
escuchan.
floor. Can you hear me?
Perfecto, Javier.
Perfecto.
Yes, we
Primero que
can.
todo, muchas gracias,
First of
Ferney.
all, I would like to
Muchas
thank you,
gracias
Ferney.
a todos
I
y
would
a
like
todas
to
los que han
thank you all,
participado en esta mañana durante
those
este
that have
webinar.
been with us
Muy,
on the
muy
webinar.
instructivo, definitivamente. Yo creo que hoy hemos
It's
visto
quite
cómo la
a learning
incorporación de la perspectiva de género
event We had seen how to add in the gender perspective into the quality infrastructure takes place not only in improving design, but also the all the services that we provide. This, of course, contributes to building more equitable organizations, more diverse organizations, and especially more representative. Throughout the morning, I've taken some notes that I'm going to try to summarize for you. First of all, we started by talking about the whole American continent, the Latin culture, which is said to be quite men-oriented, but in the end, it's been a matriarchal culture.
Digamos, el guía, la guía, el pilar o los líderes, como
The
estamos
leaders,
mencionando mucho IAC,
as has
son siempre
been
las mujeres y tenemos
said,
que recordar eso, ¿no?
are
Ahora, ¿cómo
women, and we
pasamos
need
de
to
esa
remember
cultura
that.
patriarcal en
How do
casa
we
a
go
esa
from
cultura
that
también
matriarchal
de
culture
inclusión en el
to the
trabajo, en la
inclusion
profesión?
culture
Es lo que
at
nosotros
work
hemos estado tratando de
is what
promover
we have
y es lo
been
que
trying
estamos
to
haciendo en la
promote and
infraestructura.
what we are doing in quality
Creo
infrastructure.
que él sí nos presentó un poquito de sus datos. Parte bien era
STEM
algo
shared
parcial
some
todavía,
data,
pero sí nos
even when
decía
it
que
was
básicamente
partial data,
el
but
decía
basically
53
it read
del grupo de datos que tenía,
53
cuáles fueron
out
sus
of the
contribuciones.
data
Y
that
estos
we
datos
had.
ya más o
And
menos
these
hablan
data
del
items
57%, o sea, más
speak
de la
about
mitad de los miembros del
57%.
SIM ya han
So
aportado esa
over
información.
half
Estamos viendo
the
cómo vamos
members have
midiendo
contributed
esa
information,
inclusión
seeing
o,
how inclusion
digamos,
is
perspectiva
measured,
de lo que es la inclusión de
the
género en lo que
perspective
estamos
of what
haciendo
gender
en una organización
perspective
que
is
sí no te va a negar
in an
por la parte
organization
científica
that
desde sus inicios,
will
en
take
teoría,
us from the
era masculina. Ahora
scientific
vamos a ver
portion,
un
which
poquito qué
was
ha pasado a futuro, ¿no?
masculine, and
Y
we
esto vamos también
will
a ver cómo,
discuss
cómo cambia un
later.
poquito los datos de aquí,
And
porque son
we
los
will
mismos. Y
see
lo
how
importante es
data
cómo
change.
incorporar esto dentro
And
del
the
SIM
way
en
to
el plan
add this
estratégico del
in
Sistema
SIM
Interamericano de
in
Metrología.
the strategic
Copan
plan
obviamente
in
nos
the
dice que ellos han
Americas
estado
in
trabajando por
metrology.
años, ya
Copan is
un par de
saying
años
that they
atrás ya
have
en
been
este
doing
aspecto y
this for
efectivamente, como
years.
decía Puri
And
ahorita, han
actually,
estado trabajando en la declaración y en la guía que ya muchos
people have been
de los
working in
organismos de quality reference ya
declarations
están
and
utilizando
guidelines
y
used
vemos
by
cómo
quality
incorporan también la
infrastructure
perspectiva de
bodies
género
and the
en
way
lo que
to
están
add
haciendo
the
y dando
gender
los ejemplos,
perspective in
los
everything that
diplomados que
is
están
being
haciendo,
done.
lo que se está trabajando con
The
música y aquí
diplomacies, what is
siempre
being
hablamos de música
done
y creo que
uh,
es
about
válido
by
recordar
Musica,
qué es
and it's
música.
valid
Las
to remember
mujeres
what
dentro del
Musica is.
sistema de la infraestructura
Women
de la
in
calidad.
the
Aquí ya
quality
vemos que la nueva
infrastructure
infraestructura de la calidad
system.
ya tiene un organismo de
We
mujeres que
know
están
that there is a
promoviendo
women's
el trabajo
organization that are
profesional y la inclusión
promoting
de las mujeres en
the
este sentido.
professional
Y habló
efforts
también
in
de
including
de los temas de
women in
mentoría
this
que hemos estado
sense,
trabajando y los ejemplos que nos
including
presentaron tanto
mentorship,
a INACAL y TTBS.
everything
IAC nos dice
submitted
también que ellos tienen
by
una
Inakali
resolución
and
que
TBS.
incluye e incorpora todos los temas
This
de género en los
includes
diferentes
gendered
organismos nacionales de
subjects
acreditación y en
in
los
different
organismos de evaluación de la
or
conformidad
accreditation
acreditados, ¿verdad?
and
Y también han estado
accredited
trabajando, pues
conformity
obviamente en
assessment
los webinars
bodies.
y, por supuesto, el
We have been working
reconocimiento de
at
esas mujeres
webinars
líderes
and the
refiriéndonos con nosotros
recognition
a
of
esas mujeres
leading
líderes,
women
Araceli y
and
Rosario,
what
¿verdad?
we have,
Que después nos
for
habló un poco
instance,
junto con María
Araceli,
Rosario y Liz
who talked
en
together
cuanto
with
a
Maria
Liz con
Rosario and Liz
como buena
as to
tica,
Liz as
vestida de blanco
a
con su pañuelo de
good
rojo para que también
Costa
viéramos su
Rican
cultura.
dressed in
Eso es
white
lindo,
with
¿verdad?
a red
Y
handkerchief. That
obviamente,
is so nice.
¿qué no vimos tal vez?
And
Porque
what
tenemos que
we
entender
failed to
quiénes
see,
estamos
but
aquí
we
de
need
los
to
los
understand.
tres
And
organismos que
Ferney
conformamos la
said this,
infraestructura de la calidad
the
del
three
conocimiento.
quality
Al
infrastructure
principio vimos esos tres
bodies
organismos, sin quererlo, su comité directivo o comité
unintendedly.
ejecutivo son 6 personas.
The
3
executive boards
presidentes,
are
3
six
secretarios
people,
ejecutivos.
3 chairs,
Hay un
3 executive
50% ahí. 3
secretaries.
personas son
3
varones,
people
3
are
personas son
men,
mujeres.
3 people
Entre
are
ellos se discuten
women,
cosas como estas, cómo incrementar
discussing things
casualmente
like
la
this, how to
participación
increase the
femenina dentro de la guía.
participation of women.
Al principio dije que sí, efectivamente metrología
I
es
said at the
en
beginning that
teoría
metrology
un
theoretically
área de científicos e
is an area
inicialmente
of
eran varones.
scientists
Si nosotros
who
aquí
initially
vemos
were
cómo han ido
men.
cambiando las fotos
You can
de todo
see
ese
how
tema en el
things
PIPM y la
changed.
incorporación de las mujeres, podemos
Adding
ver que
women,
anteriormente de 20 personas había
before
0 o 1.
out
Hoy
of
en día, cada
20
vez que
people,
tomamos
we
estas
had
fotos en el
0 or
cada vez
1
vemos una gran
woman.
participación
But
del
when we
tema
take the
del sector
pictures, we
femenino. O
see
sea que
more and more
ya yo diría que
women
más del
in our pictures.
40%
So
de
I would say that over
los líderes de
40%
metrología
of
a nivel
metrology
mundial
leaders
son
worldwide
mujeres. De hecho,
are
la
women.
presidenta actual del Buró
The
Internacional de Pesos
current
y Medidas,
chair
la
of the
doctora
International
Enecu,
Weights and
obviamente es
Measures
mujer. O sea, eso
Committee,
demuestra cómo
Aneco,
ha ido
is a woman.
creciendo la
This
incorporación y
shows
la
the
interacción
growth
con las mujeres en el área
of the
científica. O sea,
interaction of
a
women in
futuro, ¿qué nos toca?
science.
Bien decía
What's laying for
UNECE,
us out there
y
in
lo
the
vimos en el
future?
mapa, más
We
del
saw this in the
50%
map.
también ya
Over
de los países de nuestra
50%
región, por
of
lo menos,
countries in
y
the
de todos los
region at
países del
least
mundo,
and
ya están obviamente lo
worldwide
que es la
are
declaración
already
de inclusión de lo que es género
looking
en su
at
trabajo.
the inclusion of gender in their work.
Importante no se mencionó, pero también es
It was not
positivo
said, but it's also
mencionar que
positive
dentro de un par de
to
meses se va a
mention
estar
that in a
realizando en
couple of
Panamá
months
la
in
reunión del
Panama,
Global
we
ACI.
will
Y bien
hold
que
the
también
Global
porque vamos a
ACI
tener
meeting and
un
we
segmento de la
will
infraestructura de la
have
calidad
a
en esa
segment in
actividad,
quality
también
infrastructure in that
pudiéramos ver si
activity.
promovemos la inclusión de
And we need
género
to see
en este
whether
sentido,
we
ya no
can
solo a nivel
include
regional, pero a
gender
nivel
there,
político.
not only regionally, but
Cierro con los dos
globally.
porque
And let me wrap up
anoté
by
muy importantes de todas las presentaciones.
highlighting two very
Mencionaron
important
la
points.
importancia de
You
todo
talked
esto.
about the
Claro,
relevance of all
todos
this.
hablaban. Y la importancia,
Everybody
¿cuál es?
talked about
Efectivamente,
this.
dar confianza
And we need
en
to
todos
create
y para todos.
reliability,
Y
trust
eso lo digo también
for
con la
all
visión de
and
metrología.
for everyone.
Es
And I'm
la
talking
visión de
from the
metrología es lo mismo.
metrology
Para
vision
todos, para
for
todos los tiempos,
everybody,
para todas las
at all
personas.
times, for
Y
all
la inclusión
people.
de género también tiene que
And
ser con
gender
esa misma visión.
inclusion has to
Dar
have
la
the same mission,
confianza de que
provide
todos podemos
trust
hacer el
that
trabajo.
all of
Y
us
también
can
por ahí decían después,
agree to
lo que
this.
tenemos que dar a conocer es
And we need
empoderar
to
a las mujeres
disclose
a
that
tener la
women need to
confianza
be
de ser
empowered
parte de
so
este
that they
cambio
can
mundial.
trust that they can become part of this world
Tenemos que darle la
change.
oportunidad a
We need
todos
to
nuestros
give
compañeros y
all
compañeras,
our
sobre todo
colleagues
las
the
mujeres, de que
opportunity,
gracias a
especially
ellas
to
estamos
women
haciendo un
colleagues,
mejor
that
trabajo a
thanks
nivel
to
mundial. Y
them,
eso
we're
no
making
lo
a
podemos
better work
olvidar y es parte de
worldwide,
lo que
and
vemos en
we
la
cannot
infraestructura de la
forget
calidad.
that, and that is
Y
part
cerramos
of good
diciendo, no
quality
se trata de
infrastructure. And let us
favorecer,
wrap up
sino de
that by saying that
aportar
it's not favoring,
capacidades y
but
competencias.
of
Efectivamente, eso es lo que
contributing
estamos
with
tratando de hacer.
skills and
No es dar la
competencies.
oportunidad a las mujeres porque son mujeres,
No, it's
porque
not
ellas deben un
giving
paso,
women
no,
the
es
opportunity because they are
entender
women, because they
la
need to be given
capacidad que tienen
space,
ellas,
but it is
por iguales que
understanding
son,
their
que somos todos,
capacity
y recibir esos aportes para
and
mejorar todo lo que
get their
hacemos. Con
contribution
ello
to
yo creo
improve
que a través de estas
everything
acciones
we do.
concretas
So I
que hemos
believe that
visto en los
through
ejemplos de
all these
metrología,
concrete
normalización
actions
y
we've
acreditación
talked
de
about
los miembros del
metrology,
QICA, creo que nos
accreditation,
han demostrado cuáles son los
standardization.
caminos más
QICA
prácticos que
members have shown us the
estamos
most
tomando
practical
para avanzar
uh,
en estas dos dimensiones, el
paths to follow
profesionalismo,
and
formación
advance
y
in
la
these
inclusión obviamente de
dimensions,
género.
what we're doing and the
Esperamos que
inclusion
estos
of gender.
ejemplos sirvan de
We
inspiración
expect these
para que otras
examples will be
organizaciones
an
de la región,
inspiration so that
como Atención
other
Victoria, obviamente,
organizations
empiecen
in
y
the region,
profundicen
as it
en
was
lo que están
said,
haciendo
will
e
go
incluyan
deeper
temas de
and
género en todos sus
expand what
procesos
we are
y
saying and
procedimientos.
include gender in
Yo
all
creo
their
que como próximo
procedures and
paso desde
processes.
QICA
I
y
believe
con el
that from
apoyo obviamente de
QICA,
PTV y
the
lo que era
next
este proyecto
steps and with
QIFCI,
support of
vamos a estar
PTV and the
trabajando y
QIFRC
continuaremos
project,
acompañando a
we
nuestros
will be
miembros
working and working
para
with
dar a
our
conocer lo que estamos
members
haciendo
so
y
as to
obviamente
disseminate
siempre
what we're
tratar de
doing
que estos
and
espacios sean abiertos
always
para que todos
having open
podamos
spaces
beneficiarnos a
so
los
that
mismos.
everyone can
Así que sin
benefit
más, yo quisiera
from these
agradecer
spaces.
primero
Without further
a
ado,
el
let me
PTV por la
thank
oportunidad que nos da
PTV
en
for
este
the
proyecto
opportunity
de
they
incluir
give
el tema de
us
género
in this
en
project
un
of
contexto
including
de
gender
infraestructura de la
in a
calidad
context
para
of
la economía
quality
circular y la
infrastructure for
digitalización, ¿verdad?
circular
Para que veamos
economy
que no son temas separados,
so that we can
somos
see
todos
that
los que
they are
estamos
not
haciendo un solo
separate
trabajo.
subjects, that
También
they are part of the
quisiera
same
agradecerle
structure. I
a
would
Ferney
like
por su
to thank
liderazgo, a
Ferney for
Mónica por su
his leadership,
acompañamiento
Monica
y
for her
constancia, y a
support, and
todos los
her
panelistas que han estado
ongoing
presentes el día de
support,
hoy,
and
en
all the
especial a
panelists today,
UNECE,
and
¿verdad? Por
especially
todo su aporte
EC
significativo también en
and
este
ICE
sentido
for their
y por
support and their
acompañarnos en esta
leadership,
visión de perspectiva de
for
género
their
internacional que todos
support
debemos
in
tener.
this
Sin
international
más, a
gender
todos los más
perspective
de
that we have to
220
do.
participantes
To
que
all
han estado con nosotros a
the
través de esta
220
hora y
plus
media,
participants
agradecerles por el
of
tiempo
this
que nos brindan
time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your trust in trying to help not just in metrology, accreditation, and standardization, but everything, because we are human beings and we depend on each other and the work we do. Thank you, Fernie. Let me give you the floor. Thank you, Javier, for your such important words. And all of you here, thank you for your time, for being with us in these 2 hours without leaving your places. This shows that everybody's interested in these subjects, and for this to move on and be on the agenda, please fill in a survey that we're going to send you to your emails so as to strengthen this type of conversation, the aspects you are interested in trying to improve in this webinar. Thank you for your attendance, and we hope you have an excellent rest of the day. Thank you.